6:16. We'll start this evening's meeting, and Jolene, if you can do a roll.
Council members Larson,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Valento, here, Erickson,
Here.
Mayor Roberts.
Here. And if you're able, please join us in saying for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Council, we have an agenda in front of us. I'm willing to make a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. We do not have any awards and presentations this evening, so we'll go right into open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone to come speak in front of the council. Please limit your remarks to about 3 minutes and state your name and address. I will call up people who have signed up. First one is Mike Anderson.
Hello, Mike Anderson, 7570 231st Street North, Forest Lake, Minnesota, 55025. Elk River, Inver Grove Heights, Champlin, Zumbrota, St. Francis, New Branch, North Branch, Detroit Lakes, Pine Island, Cross Lake, Babbitt, Wadena, Plainview, Ham Lake, Chatfield, and Columbus all have brought this flag back. We don't have to bring this flag back. We could put nothing up and I would be more pleased. It was shoved down our throats by a group of 13 people who voted 11-2. I'm guessing you could understand where the party lines fell for those 11 people compared to the 2. The flag is our history. You look, do some research on the Somalia flags, the state flags that they have in Somalia. It's damn near identical to that. I have friends that went overseas and died under this flag for your Minnesota state, for your country. People have fought for flags for years. You say it's not a big issue. Every time I drive by and see that at the high school, things like that, here, the city hall, right there, it makes me sick. This was designed by Norwegian sisters. Okay, is there any Norwegian in this flag? No, it's Minnesota. The seal, okay, there's some controversy over the seal. Then why wouldn't they put the same flag with just the new Minnesota seal, with the little loon flying up out of the lake? It's better than the Somali flag. And the list of cities that I named off, their city council all did a vote on that flag. And I know there's talk of, oh, we're going to sanction all these towns that put the old flag up. Oh, well, if that's that big of an issue, take a vote. Like, talk to your people. You guys were elected by Forest Lake residents with wide streets. And I really would like you guys to reconsider and have a vote tonight about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Brandt. So I should clarify here. We do have a public hearing, correct, on
That is correct.
Yeah.
On the Havenwood Chestnut Creek.
Okay, so if you're here to speak to that issue, you can speak now or wait until that agenda item comes up. Okay, all right. Sean D.
Well, nervous, but first time ever doing this.
Welcome.
But it needs to be done. There's no city ordinances. I'm in stage 5 kidney failure, so next year hopefully I get kidney, pancreas. But I've been living at Westridge Townhomes for over 10 years, I believe. Nothing's being done. Our water heaters are outdated, furnaces, they never change the filters. Nothing's being done, never been, our filtration is, I mean, you go up into the air ducts and there, it's gross. Nothing's being done. And the other thing, MBG Properties, I found this out too, which is crazy to me. So they're raising our garage rent from $40 to $60 a month. They're also trying to rebuild the garages and they have millions with taxpayers' money. That's crazy to me. When somebody can't get welfare that makes too much, but these corporations can get taxpayers' money. It's weird. That's about all I gotta say about that, just because when the city comes in, inspectors can't do anything. The fire department can't do anything. It's expired stuff. Everybody's got their hands tied. We have over 20,000 people. So we should have city ordinances enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Stevens.
My first time speaking here too. I thought I was signing an attendance roster. I don't have any comments. I'm just here for an update on the Haven One development.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for coming this evening. All right, anyone else like to speak this evening on a different topic other than the Havenwood? All right, with no one else coming forward, we'll end tonight's open forum and we'll go into the consent agenda. Council, I'm going to make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through J and M through O, pulling out K and L.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we have a consent agenda. Right, so we'll add those two items at the beginning. The first item is the Fenway rehabilitation. A little bit more discussion on this. It is a large project, an important project coming forward, and so Ryan is willing to do that. So I'll turn it over to.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Before I get in the weeds, we'll just kind of talk a little history about this roadway. The roadway was first constructed in 2001. Major roadway that's obviously been a collector for a large development neighborhood area. It's seen obviously the construction traffic through all the development that's occurred south of Highway 97 and school construction. And then it obviously provides a main transportation route for a lot of activities on the weekend down at the Fenway Athletic Fields and the hockey ice arena. So it's been in the CIP since 2021 as a specific project identified. And then the only thing that's really evolved with it in about 2023 was the trail addition to it, when we knew that the Highway 97 project was going to have a trail on the south side of Highway 97. And then as the development continued along Headwaters Parkway in that area. So the trail, what's written in the CIP in the sheets, this is the statement, I'll just read verbatim. Project is planned in 2027 construction. Project scope will include pavement replacements. There are 3 lifts of roadway on this collector. So it's a little more robust, a lot more robust than your typical residential neighborhood roadway. Curb and gutter, spot repairs, subgrade corrections, replacement of non-compliant pedestrian ramps, and replacement of street signs and roadway striping from Highway 97 to 200th Street North. So the limits of the project are at the 200th Street North, just a little south of that area. That's where then that's project with the roundabout was constructed to the south. Also will include the 10-foot wide trail extension from Fenston Avenue to Highway 97. That will connect then to the MnDOT trail that's going to be constructed on the south side of Highway 97 here in the stage 2 project of that project. We're also gonna analyze 2 locations for potential rectangular rapid flashing beacon systems to be installed for pedestrian crossings, the push button with the yellow blinking lights. So that's kind of the scope of the work. The project is about 4,600 feet long, so just under a mile. The plan is, other than when we talked about Fund 211 early in the year and what would come out of that, it's the remaining year of 26 and potential 27. That's where the 85,000 was identified for preparation of plans and specs. But the construction project and inspection is anticipated to be funded by the state aid construction funds. Currently in that balance is 3.9 million. And remember, state aid construction funds can only be utilized on state aid eligible projects. So it would first have to be a state aid route, which Fenway Avenue is. Then we would have to award a project for construction. Then also now everything's eligible, right? So all the payments would, you know, as we make contractors requests for payments as the project proceeds, we would do reimbursements to state aid to, you know, kind of get that money in the bank to pay the contractor. So you can't 100% say it's not going to affect the general levy because anything you spend here or there does, right? But this is outside general levy dollar funding for the construction project. In just kind of talking about your construction state aid a little bit. So we are anticipated to use construction state aid funds on Fenway Avenue project that I just talked about. Also the County State Highway 32 project and the intersection of County Road 50 and 61 project. May be asking why can't we use that on some of the costs that have come up with Eureka? Eureka Avenue is not a state aid designated route, therefore state aid eligible funds are not, these funds can't be used there. So I think that's kind of all the stuff that I had written down in addition to what was in the packet. So just open up with any questions you might have.
So any questions? I have one. It doesn't appear that we have any sidewalk or trail going into the Fenway complex. This seems like an opportunity to pull in something, a trail or something that would get people to go into that in a more safe manner, especially if we are contemplating developing these 2 sites to the north. Is that an option somehow to bring that trail in and serve that park?
You have an existing trail connection at 202nd that goes between the softball fields and like football fields or soccer ball fields. That goes all the way through the park. You have a sidewalk extension down Finston Avenue. Are you talking about specifically between the ball fields?
Well, I guess I don't know where, so there is a sidewalk on Finston?
On the south side of Finston that does go all the way to 206th Street, then takes you to the ice arena or to the parking lots. You have a trail connection on the south side of the softball fields that runs through the entire athletic park. That is a direct connect out to Fenway's existing.
So this will just bring the sidewalk from Fenston north, but there's already sidewalk south of Fenston is what you're saying into the park.
There's trail along trail. Let me just pull up a map.
Got it up.
Oh,
You want to pull up your map?
I just got Google Maps. Just zero in so they can see. So here's the trail that goes all the way through the park. And then down into neighborhoods. That comes out to Fenway Avenue's right away. There is an existing trail from Fenston to the south within Fenway right away. But then from Fenston to the north would be the new trail construction that will then close that gap that's missing from Fenston to Highway 97. So now you'll have a major loop in that entire area upon MnDOT finishing their trail this summer. So in essence, you could go north of Fenway, east on Highway 97, south on the Hardwood Creek Trail, and then come down to Headwaters Parkway, and then go back north up Fenway and then go into your neighborhood if you, for say, lived in Summerfields. There is sidewalk on the south side of Fenston that runs west and east. And there's a portion of sidewalk constructed up 206 part of developments on that parcel right there, that one of the conditions of the requirement of development there would be to extend that sidewalk along their front footage. But we're really just constructing the piece that's missing.
So, you know, the only concern is that, you know, we have some land there that we're trying to sell, and that, you know, putting that trail does diminish the opportunity on that property to sell and develop. And so, I'm fine with moving forward with this, but if there's some type of a caveat that still would be an option to redirect that and just make the loop coming in instead of going right up Fenway, I doubt it can go on the west side. But I think that I'd hate to make a decision that would negatively affect any opportunity to fully develop that site out based on a trail.
I just ask a clarifying question. If I'm understanding you correctly, is that instead of the trail running directly parallel to the property line along Fenway, what kind of opportunity there could be to bring it into the site in some way if needed?
That or now it's been pointed out that we have some kind of connection, but maybe it's just a connection that then continues. Maybe it's this piece of it going to I'm pointing, no one can see what I'm looking at, but along 206 to the northwest, if you will, to make that loop, I guess.
Avoid putting trail on the west side of that. trail.
Yeah, I mean, we have a piece of property that we're trying to develop out, and I just consider that if there's a way we can continue that, have that connectivity, making that loop, but not, you know, damage the opportunity to maybe fully build out that, again, that property based on a trail. I just like to have that. Nice to have that option, in my opinion, instead of shoehorning ourselves into a site plan based on the trail being along this.
Mr. Mayor, Abby, wouldn't there be an easement on those pieces of land as well that couldn't be built on anyways, where that trail would be kind of contemplated to go? So if somebody wanted to come in and develop that site, wouldn't the city wouldn't we retain a 15 or 20-foot easement on a lot like that on both sides of that parcel to develop anyways?
Generally, when we do plat properties, we do reserve drainage and utility, not necessarily a trail easement. But then there would also be a building setback from that or a parking lot setback that would be imposed. I haven't seen anything yet where a trail would negatively impact development, but I also know that with the wetland delineation kind of coming to a head here, that area specifically between the wetland and Fenway gets kind of tight through there. Really, frankly, I'm not sure that anybody's gonna be able to get much in between in that pinch point right there. But so to answer your question, generally, yes, we do have an easement. Is it for trail? No, but there usually are things like building and parking lot setbacks that would retain a little bit of separation from the property line to the edge of the right of way.
And then so potentially then it could come up Fenway, and instead of going up 206 or going across Fenston, it could come in towards that wetland and around that wetland over to 206 or something if we wanted to, and tie in with that sidewalk. And that might free up that whole corner then. You know what I'm saying?
You do, if you mean going all the way to the north and looping back around?
No, not going all the way to the north, but let's say we come up Fenway past 206th towards Fenston. And, you know, we have the wetland right there in the middle of that parcel. Couldn't the trail maybe come up halfway and then come towards that wetland to the east and then around the wetland to the sidewalk on 206th or on whatever that road is there? I can't think of what it is, 206th.
Yeah, I think,
Kind of like where you put the black line.
yeah, I think then that, you know, makes a loop right here, a little mini loop.
Yeah, and
But,
then that makes kind of that corner more open, so we wouldn't have to worry about potentially affecting any development if that was an issue.
yes, the only thing I would say is that we would still want that pedestrian connectivity going all the way
All the way to the
north
corner.
on Highway 97. For that like long-term big connectivity within the community.
And our trail could go over any underwater things we have on there for an easement or underground things.
Yeah, generally we allow
Yeah.
for our trails over our utilities and sort of thing.
I do just want to bring up, I mean, the alignment of the trail has been talked about in your your old master park plan
Right,
and in your current park plan.
right.
Pretty extensive public engagements. It also was in your comprehensive 2040 comprehensive plan. I believe when we first started some discussions with potential development on here, we did account for trail space. So it wouldn't be a new conversation for the parties, I believe, that have been engaged. And I don't think you would want a neighborhood trail like this to meander through developments unless, I mean, you're not going to want to take this trail to a sidewalk. Right? I mean, this is a pretty substantial trail corridor. Going to have significant looping and connections.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just, I agree with the mayor that, you know, we don't want to jeopardize the opportunity to develop that piece of land. I don't think what's proposed would, but I just wanted to look at other options as well.
It looks like, so our next steps here aren't until February of next year. I mean, again, are we committing to here? Are we tied into this exact plan, at least where the trail is? And we've got some, looks like some runway here to see what might potentially come back to Abby's point about the wetland delineations just now coming forward. That developer might want to push that building to the west too, based on that wetland delineation. I don't know. And I just would hate to handcuff ourselves to something based on a trail when we're trying to sell a couple $100,000 pieces of property and the taxable income coming into those pieces. It seems a little short-sighted to commit to something like this without having that development piece and, you know, to know more about what that might look like.
The street work could be done without any trail work, right? But if we are going to analyze intersections for potential rectangular rapid flashing beacon, we're going to kind of want to know if that trail will be in the project or not. Or ultimately, what is our plan for that connection? I mean, we got major trail that's going to be constructed on the south side of Highway 97. That's going to take you, well, you can get all the way over to the middle school, you know, with all the trails that are already constructed. You're going to be able to get all the way out across 35. So, I mean, I think it definitely can have additional conversation, whether it's in the project or not, or if there's some alternative that needs to be accounted for. But if I go outside the right of way of the roadway, it will not be state aid eligible.
I don't think, these speak for myself, and I think the council, we understand the connectivity and think that somewhere a trail should go through here to make that final thing. I just, again, to commit something without knowing the unknown on a major project and likely coming, I just think we're being a little short-sighted by doing something here that might hold us to something.
I mean, what's the timing on that wetland delineation?
We just got early last week the wetland delineation report. We'd need to submit it for the TEP panel. Just trying to figure out who can sign on that sort of thing in the unique circumstance that it's an EDA project. We don't have an administrator, so it was something that I needed to coordinate with Jolene on. Then the TEP panel will end up reviewing that. That usually can be anywhere from a few weeks to 6 at most, I would say. So then we should have that delineation done, you know, into June, early July. The purchase agreement on this property, I don't remember which one has a purchase and which one has an option off the top of my head, but I think that they're still valid until August or so. So I think that there's some time to work with the potential developer on design that might be able to work. I understand the desire to not impede development, but I would also encourage the council to not necessarily sacrifice your infrastructure systems, because those are just critical components of the network of the community in the long run.
Like I said, I don't think anyone here is against the trail connecting somewhere.
So is this on our tonight's agenda because we were up against a timeline relative to this whole Fenway project? Or if we revisit this once we had the wetland report complete and we are possibly making a more informed decision, is there a runway issue?
No runway issue. Just want to give ample time to get a project that we know is ready to submit to state aid for approval. So then I sit in their queue. That way we're at the competitive time to bid it. You know, that's kind of what our schedule was laid out. We start bidding a month or two later, that's, you do take the chance that a lot of contractors have already been successful on bids and, you know, workload might not be as hungry, so. But
Ryan, would it be fair to say that you could just find plans and specs and have the trail as an alternate that you could do that?
good. You could go and get the plans and specs done, submit to state aid, get approval, and then what I say bid opening's March 4th. I mean, 2 weeks before the bid opening, you could be like, X the trail, you know, we'll send an addendum out and take it out of the plans and specs, right? But I think there needs to be some due diligence and time to see what can fit there and what you might have for some restrictions in some existing width, you know, where you gotta fit, or, you know, some stuff now, that's the time that would be working through that to see what you might have to then have as a conversation with a potential developer. Just because we want it in plans and specs doesn't mean it has to actually get constructed, right? Or maybe something comes in and there's a whole different, you want me to start here, stop there, and they'll connect and meander it through their site somehow and then carry on by Team Vantage.
You know, ultimately, it might not, nothing might work as far as the late placement of whatever building, and we can do this. I just doing it without having the full information. That's why I pulled it. I guess that's why I pulled it for further discussion like this. So, are you saying that we could go ahead and approve this and we have an opportunity to potentially revisit where this direction of this trail goes if we approve this tonight?
Knowing that that's obviously a top request of the project, so we would want to work closely and probably workshop that. You know, the first steps that you would have to do in this scenario here is you're gonna have to do some field survey. So you shoot the back of the curb and then you pull some parcel data. You're gonna shoot any existing private utilities that are out there, pedestals, poles, hydrants, you know, to see where we can fit, because with state aid money, we're gonna have to have some clear zone requirements and can't be right on the side of something too. So to see how it would fit. And then, yeah, once we get to that point, we can then workshop some of those, what it would look like, and then, or work with the developer prior to doing that too, so.
We need to entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 7K as presented.
Second.
Right, motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Right, the next item, real simple. So Mr. Car Wash warranty release, family member mine has a financial interest in that property, so I would be abstaining.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 7L.
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Right, we'll move on to the regularly scheduled agenda. Public Works Facility Bonding Scenarios Funding Discussion. I think maybe Ellie will start, and then we do have Bruce from Ellers.
Yes, so I was just going to introduce Bruce from Ellers. Bruce has worked with the city for numerous years. He also has worked on the 10-year plan, and he will be going in detail over funding scenarios for the Public Works facility, along with different options we have with the debt we would look to take on.
Right, great. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Ellie. It's great to be back with you. And does everyone have the PowerPoint on their screens? It doesn't seem to be up here yet.
It looks
but
like it might be trying to come up.
I don't want to start the techno music again. It's on here, so you know it's on here. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
Sometimes it just needs a little encouragement.
Little nudge.
That's not that much it needs. Oh, you know,
That would
we're
help.
gonna plug in the HDMI cord. How about that?
Tell I'm really tech savvy. All right, here we go. Great. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. I know you've had a number of discussions already about the Public Works facility. And hopefully tonight's discussion will give you a little bit more information with which to make some decisions on how you want to move forward. So as you probably recall, we've been discussing in past conversations financing the Public Works facility through a number of different revenue streams. Absent the local option sales tax that we are all hoping the state legislature would have authorized you to ask the voters for this fall. But there's a number of state statutes involved that allow the city to issue different types of bonds for different types of projects. And so starting at the top, the portion that would be repaid with property taxes, you really have three different statutory authorities available to the city. The most basic and simple one would be general obligation capital improvement bonds. Then you also do have the ability to use a mechanism called tax abatement bonds. That's kind of a misnomer, but it is an option for a facility of this type. And then finally, if you didn't want to issue general obligation bonds for that purpose, you could issue EDA lease revenue bonds. And essentially the EDA would do the financing and lease the facility to the city. All things being equal, I would prefer and recommend one of the GO bond options that's going to give you your best interest rate. And that's because of the ability to really access the city's credit rating, which is very, very strong. EDA lease revenue bonds would also be rated, but they would be rated one notch below a GO bond. And so they're, on a 40 million or 30 million or even a $20 million bond issue, that is worth considering.
Bruce, can I just ask one question?
Yes.
So, or two questions probably. You've been at this a long time. I think maybe is that not how we finance this building, the EDA these revenue bonds? Do you know? I think
Correct.
you were
Mr.
part of
Mayor,
that.
originally, the city and the EDA did enter into that kind of lease arrangement for this facility. And then a number of years ago, I'm forgetting the exact year, the city took out that debt with GO bonds to get a better interest rate and save the city quite a bit of money for the remainder of that debt service.
Okay. And I'm familiar with general obligated to capital improvement. Are you going to, this general tax abatement bond, are you going to go into detail on some of these or
I
can't
wasn't
you now?
planning on it, but I
I'm
certainly
not familiar
can.
with that.
Basically, tax abatement in this context, Mr. Mayor, is a misnomer. It sounds like somebody's not paying taxes that you're abating, right? And that's not really the case at all. In Minnesota, you can use this mechanism for economic development purposes, but also for the building of public facilities like this or the Public Works facility. And so essentially it's a allocation or a designation of a certain amount of the city's tax levy. That's called the abatement, and you'd use that abatement to pay the debt service on that portion of the bonds. So it has sort of a funny title, but it's essentially another type of general property tax bond.
Thanks.
So then also, you probably recall that there has been discussion of paying some portion with city water and sewer revenues as well. That's much more simple. You have general obligation utility revenue bond authority there, whether it's paid with water or sewer in any combination you would like. Those bonds are pretty straightforward and there aren't really any procedural considerations for issuing those bonds. One thing that I should note is that even though we're looking at having different fundings or revenue streams for this bond, these GO purposes can be combined into one bond issue. You can't combine a GO with a lease revenue, but if you had GO CIP bonds, for instance, and GO water revenue bonds, even though there are two separate authorities, you can merge those together into one bond issue. And that actually is a very efficient and effective way to issue debt because you're only paying me once, for instance, for one bond issue instead of multiple. Same with the rating agencies, and bond investors typically like bigger bond issues to bid on. So you have more economies of scale, if you will, with one bond issue, even if it combines multiple authorities.
One more question.
Yeah.
So if we do use a portion of the city and sewer funds, that fund balance there is to start to help pay those? I mean, I guess I didn't realize it'd be another bond. We wouldn't use our reserves or our fund balance to make those payments. It would actually be another bond. Is that how that works typically?
So, Mr. Mayor and council members, I think when you look at this project, you would want to ask first and foremost, how much cash across all city funds can you afford to use versus needing it for a rainy day and for other capital and operating priorities. And that's true for the utility funds, it's true for the general fund. So I am not really prepared to say what a good number of cash would be that you could apply to the project, but that's kind of a fundamental foundational question. So you're spot on in asking that. And then for the part that you don't feel is appropriate to pay cash for, whatever that ends up being, that's where we would use these different statutory authorities on the tax levy supported side and on the water or sewer revenue side. And so then you'd be looking at paying those bonds off over 20, maybe 25 years and using future revenues, both tax revenues and utility revenues to make those payments. All right. I know you've discussed this before. This is not set in stone by any means, but just the sort of baseline assumption as to the allocation was that you would pay roughly 50% of the bonded portion, again, to your point, Mr. Mayor, from future property taxes, about 1/8 from water revenues, and about 3/8 from sewer revenues. Ellie asked me to go way back to when we first started having these conversations. And I think the sort of working premise was that it was sort of a mix of what purposes will be housed within this public works facility, what would be a reasonable apportionment of benefit, if you will, to the public works department versus the utilities per se. And also it was based on the capacity of those funds and their relative strength and inability to absorb debt service of this nature. So certainly not rocket science or anything that's set in stone, but it seemed appropriate to the folks that were in the room at the time to have that allocation. And certainly that would be something that you as the city council would ultimately decide. Also, I should note at the bottom of the slide, and this is something that I'm not sure if it's come up before, we can structure the bonds. Typically, when we do bond issues, it's with a set understanding of how the bonds will be repaid for the entirety of the bond issue. But that's not always necessary. And we can do things to give future city councils the ability to adjust the allocation of the debt service in the future. I think, if you want to go forward with the project, you would want to have a fair amount of confidence that the revenue streams in play made sense, but it's not something that's set in stone forever and ever. A future council could say, gee, maybe we want to reduce the property tax portion to 40% and the water portion up to 22.5%. I'm just making those numbers up. But you get the idea that it's something that can be revisited in the future. Okay, so repayment term. This is something that is really unique to each community and your resources and your competing priorities, what else you have on your schedules, both on the operating and the capital side. But it is typical with a facility of this nature that's going to have a long, useful life to typically stretch the debt service out at least 20 years, if not longer. You can go up to 30 years under state law. Personally, I like to sort of see clients whenever possible stay within that 20 to 25 year range, because kind of like with a home mortgage, the longer you go in the term, the more interest you pay overall. And it doesn't really get you a whole lot more annual affordability by stretching out much past 20, 25 years, right? You maybe will reduce your annual payments a little bit, but you're paying a lot more in interest for that. Whereas, certainly the difference between a 15-year bond and a 20-year bond, that really does make a difference in your annual payments. And again, with the useful life, 5 years would be very justifiable and appropriate. We also try to look at the bond yield curve when we make some of these decisions with our clients. Right now, the yield curve goes up and then it kind of levels off more or less in later term years. It doesn't keep going up on a straight ascent, which means that you're not paying as much for those longer term bonds as you would if that yield curve had a higher pitch. So that's something that we look at as well. How much more are you going to pay in terms of interest rates for going longer or not? And right now, for instance, that yield curve is relatively flat in those later years. I should also note that the city would always have the ability to either pay off the bonds or a portion of the bonds or refinance those bonds, typically after the first 9 or 10 years of the bond issue. And that's at your discretion. You're the only ones, or a future council would be the only ones that would get to decide, okay, does it make sense to pay some bonds off early? Or is there an opportunity to refinance and lower the interest costs to the city for the remainder of the bond term? And there's no rate resets either on these bond issues. These are fixed rate bond issues. And so if you were to sell the bonds, you would know what your debt service was unless you chose, again, to do something to alter it. No resets like you would have with maybe a bank financing. So then on level or shaped debt service, this is something, again, where we try to strike the right balance with our specific clients when it relates to efficiency and affordability. Obviously, level debt service for the shortest amount of time would be the most, quote, efficient, but it might not be the most affordable, right? And so striking that balance between what's going to be an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars, but also isn't going to spike the levy or utility rates is really what we're going for. And that involves a lot of iterations with finance staff coming to you probably for a workshop or two, and just seeing, are we hitting the right options and what's really going to work best for the city? I should also note that sometimes the question comes up, well, if we shape the debt service in a certain way, are bond investors or rating agencies going to look askance at that? And the answer is no. Really, they look at your creditworthiness, which is very strong. They know that you're not going to default on a GO bond. And given that rock solid certainty, they don't really care what the specifics of the debt service structure looks like. So that gives you a lot of flexibility to strike the right balance for the city today and into the future. All right. So this colorful chart is all of the city's general obligation bond debt service outstanding. And some of this debt service is paid from property taxes. Roughly about $3 million of those bars in the current years is tax supported. And then $1+ million of the bar is supported with utility revenues. So you can see that for the next 5-6 years, you're pretty level at a little over $4 million of total debt service per fiscal year. Then that drops down just a little bit below 4 million in 2033 and 34. It drops down more in 2035. And then you can see you have a very small amount from the street reconstruction bonds that the city just sold last year that goes through fiscal 41. And that's it. That's all of your debt service outstanding. Now, I would say, $4 million is a lot of money, but the city, this is a very good debt profile in that it amortizes pretty fast. Basically, all of your debt service runs off more or less within the next 10 years, 2035. And it's pretty stable. It's a good platform on which to structure additional debt if the city chose to do that, right? And I want to stress, I'm just here to give you context and options. Ultimately, of course, it's your call on exactly how a new financing might work. But this is part of the reason why you have a strong credit rating. And basically, the rating agency has said you have a very modest and moderate debt level currently. So, and that if you chose to add debt service, that would not change your credit rating because you are at comparatively low levels compared to a lot of other cities like Forest Lake that are growing and having infrastructure needs.
Excuse me, Bruce, just a question for staff, Ellie or whoever can help it. What are we contemplating with future bonds on roads and things, North Shore and all that? Do we know that dollar amount approximately? Because that doesn't contemplate this at all, right? No future, anything else that we already have in our 10-year plan on future.
Correct.
The ballpark.
Yeah, if you give me 2 seconds, I actually pulled it all today, so I just gotta get the spreadsheet pulled up.
Want to continue? Well,
Sure,
just do it.
absolutely. Okay, I mentioned the yield curve, and I won't go too far in the weeds on this, although I am a bond nerd and could certainly bend your ear for another half an hour on this. But we, in running scenarios for you, assumed the interest rates that are on the bottom part of that screen, basically based on the current market conditions and the city's very strong credit rating. We're assuming a 20-year bond would have an average interest rate or yield of 3.75%. 25-year bond would be at 4%, and 30 years would be at 4.25. I took the liberty of sort of, simplifying a little bit, knowing that you probably didn't care if it was 4.25 or 4.27, but that's basically where we're at. And if you see the bottom line on this graph, that's basically one of the proxies that we're looking at in terms of what our current AA muni geo bonds. Minnesota bonds trade a little bit better, i.e. higher prices, lower interest rates than do national averages. So these national numbers only take you so far, but we feel pretty good about using these interest rates as proxies for what the city's debt service would be.
And then we have minimal debt, just a couple road projects. We're looking to fund a lot of them through that state aid that Ryan was talking about. And so within our CIP for the next 10 years, we are looking close to only an additional $5 million, but that doesn't contemplate any of the public work stuff. And so it's a few parks things and a couple road things. And then these will all be presented when we work through our CIP.
5 million in additional debt. What's the projected payment on that approximately?
So it's very phased through the next couple of years. And so the biggest hit we would take would be in 2029, and that would be about $3.3 million of total debt issued in that year. And so those payments would come $3 million. Bruce, what would you say that payment would be on that?
Over like 10 years,
Yep.
15 years, 10 years.
Yep.
So $3 million, 10 years, I think you could use a proxy of about 400,000 per year.
Thank you.
All right, now I know these are a lot of numbers, but we did want to give you a sense of how, your decisions on project costs and repayment term might impact the annual debt service. I should know that these estimates are for level debt service, and assuming level debt service would start in year one. Just a caveat, you don't have to have 20 years of level debt service. We can do any number of things to sort of feather in or ramp up new debt service so that it doesn't all hit the property tax levy all at once, and utility rates as well. But just to get the ball rolling, again, level debt service, you can see in the orange highlighted section, if you did the full $40 million over 25 years, that annual payment would be about $2.56 million. And then, of course, if you multiply that by 25, it would be about $64 million in total over that 25-year term. And then you'll sort of see how some of these numbers flow through on following slides. The city tax base, again, this is something where we could go into the weeds, but I think it's sometimes helpful, not only for you all at the dais, but also people watching, to understand how Minnesota property taxes work, because that's, of course, what decides what the impact will be for individual property owners. So you may know that the city currently has an estimated market value of a little over $3.6 billion. There's a few deducts there that get us to the taxable market value of about $3.5 billion for the city. And then once you run everything through the classification rates. You may recall that residential homesteads have a certain classification rate. Commercial industrial properties have another classification rate. That converts into your true tax base, if you will, of just about $37 million. And that is also net of the little bit that you have in tax increment financing. And it's also net of the roughly $2.6 million that you put into the fiscal disparities pool. So you put that money into the pool and you actually get more out of the pool in terms of fiscal disparities than you put in. So you're what's considered a net recipient. But just going up to that top part again, right now for pay 26, your tax capacity rate is roughly 44%. And how we get that is simply by dividing the city levy, the complete city levy for fiscal 2026 into that $37 million tax capacity for local tax rate purposes. So with that, let's go back to the debt service numbers. So we assumed that you would issue debt for this project in 2027. Again, that's just an assumption. And that full debt service, again, assuming a level debt service, would start in 2028 with no ramp up. And so if you divide that $2.6 million, give or take, that was on that previous slide for the debt service there at the top of the slide, if you divide that by the city's $37 million tax capacity, actually we inflated it by 4% to get to 2028. That gives you a new debt tax rate of about 3.2%. So all things being equal, and of course nothing stays the same, if you were to issue $40 million of bonds repaid over 25 years, your current tax rate is about 44%. This would add 3%, taking it to 47%. And of course, that's assuming that you would levy for half of the debt service. If you said we're not going to use any utility revenues, then of course it'd be double. How am I doing so far? Making sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is probably what you care the most about. And Minnesota property taxes, nothing is simple, but I did take that 3.2% debt rate and applied it to a number of different values for residential homestead property as well as commercial industrial property. So again, I don't want to take up your entire agenda, but you're probably aware that there are these things called homestead exclusions that exclude part of your property value on a homestead up to, I think it's $517,000. It kind of ratchets down on the way to 517. And so you have your assessed value, and I just use those as proxies, less the homestead exclusions to the extent they apply, equals your taxable value. Then in Minnesota, we have two different classification rates for a residential homestead, 1% for the first 500,000, 125 for anything over 500,000, and just that increment that's over, not the whole thing. That gets you to the tax capacity, right? So that tax capacity of 37 million is made up of all these houses and businesses and everything else that have these individual tax capacities. So then if you multiply that by the debt rate, so to speak, of 3.2%, you can see what the debt impact would be for residential properties and then also for the CI property, understanding that CI property uses higher classification rates than does residential homestead. I really want to note again that this is assuming just pure level debt service with no ramping up or no feathering, and also just, pretty conservative estimates as to how we would structure this debt. I do have a wrapped version of this that I'll show you in a minute, but do any of you have any questions about the tax impact or how we got to these individual numbers for homes and businesses?
Anything?
Okay. So what are some options for reducing that property tax impact? Because again, I'm keenly aware that you have lots of priorities here in the city. you have staffing needs, you have other operational needs, you have other capital needs. And so, of course, one option would be to reduce the cost of the Public Works project. Again, we used 40 million as that baseline, but certainly we're aware that you're having conversations about how that might change. Mayor, I didn't use cash on here, but you could certainly look at using some amount of cash and discuss what the trade-offs for that would be, including foregone interest earnings. I know right now you're earning a good amount of interest. You do a great job. Ellie does a great job of managing the city's portfolio with some outside help. And of course, if you use a few $1 million of that, then some of those interest earnings would go away as well, but certainly something worth considering. You could increase the portions paid from utility revenues, bringing the tax amount down. But of course, that would mean higher utility rates, and that obviously has some disadvantages as well. You could ramp up the debt service. I mentioned that already, so there was no shock in 2028. Then, of course, you could look at a whole bunch of options for shaping the debt service around existing city bond payments. And this is something that I guess I would really encourage you to look at if you want to move forward with this project, and you think you should do that within the near term. I think certainly looking at options for shaping the new bonds around your existing bonds would be the way to go. So one option, and this is just one option of many, is that you could have interest-only payments on the new bonds through February 1 of 2035, and then have the full debt service start at that point in 35 and thereafter. And you really could structure that so that you had an 18-year clock, which we assumed here from that point forward, so that you would end at the same place that you would have if you had done level debt service, or you could do 25 years from then. You have lots of different options for how to structure that. And so what I'm about to show you is only really one of these options, but I think it is a way to make this project more affordable. So let's put together the pieces here. I took the previous slide and stripped out the debt that's repaid with utility revenues. So this is your debt levies for existing debt, really just the portions that are paid with property taxes. And you can see that right now it's just a little bit under $3 million per year, again, of that roughly $4.2 million total. And then you can see how it drops off really rapidly in 2035 and 2036. So then if you did level debt service, just straight up level debt service with no finessing, you can see that that would be a pretty big jump, right? And would be a pretty large shock to the system. At a minimum, I would encourage us to look at some ways of feathering in the new debt levies. Of course, that would cause the bars later on to increase a little bit, but certainly it would make it more palatable and affordable for the city to do something like that. And then this is a way you could do the shaped debt service. So I should note that on the previous, you're looking at a high water mark of about $5.5 million per year. If you did a wrapped approach, you would be about $4.7 million at a high water mark, a lot lower than what we were showing on the previous slide. And here also you could do some feathering things to make the impact get to wherever you need it to get to. So this is something that seems very appropriate given the city's debt profile, and again, can be adjusted in any number of ways. So now the tax impacts, I won't go through all of these in detail, but I would note just based on those rudimentary numbers that I showed you there on the previous slide, basically during those first 7-8 years, that tax impact would be about 2/3 of what it would have been with level debt service. So a pretty big difference. And again, we can do more to bring that impact even lower and still not push too much debt service out into the future. So context, this is something that we really take very, very seriously because we can structure a bond issue and help you sell it, and the market will gladly buy it. But if it jams up the city and your ability to do all sorts of other things in the future, then we haven't done a very good job. So we really want to partner closely with Jolene and Ellie and all of you to understand your 10-year financial management plan as it continues to evolve, your other capital priorities, both on the general side as well as utilities, any significant upcoming tax base adjustments. I think you just got some tax increment financing value back, right? Which is awesome. Anything else that may be on the horizon, because certainly the more you grow your pie, the less the impact is on existing businesses and residents. And then your city fiscal policy objectives and fund balances would be a part of that as well. I know that the city has made a point of maintaining 50% general fund reserves. I believe there's been some conversation or question about, do you really need to keep 50%? Is there any wiggle room on that? And I'm here to say that you absolutely do have the ability to go lower than that, both as a policy as well as even, let's say if you set a new policy of 40 to 50%, I've had a number of conversations with S&P and Moody's in which clients of mine have said, well, we need to temporarily go down to, let's say, 35%, but here's why. It's a one-time thing. It's not a structural imbalance. And here's our plan for getting back over 40% or whatever the right number is. And the rating agencies understand that and are willing, they don't see that as a disqualifying event or anything that would jeopardize the rating at that point. Now, clearly, if you don't work the plan and you don't get back to where you want to be, then they might say, what's going on? It sounds like you are having some structural issues, but I don't think that would be the situation with Forest Lake. So I guess the thing I want to end with before I take more of your questions are, we really understand that this plan, if you want to move forward with this project, needs to work for the city overall, both now and in the future. And so we would be very eager to look at any and all options to get to that right solution that works for the project and for the city. So that's what I have for you.
Great. Any initial questions or thoughts?
There's one question, and thank you for this presentation. It's been very, very helpful as we, as a council, try to wrap our heads around the decisions that need to be made. We talked a lot about tax base and tax rate. And if I recall, in previous budget cycles, we've looked at the 10-year financial plan and kind of the projected tax rate. And I feel like 10 years, we've historically been in the low 40s. We've even most recently been in the high 30s. But that projected tax rate, just even without, maybe I suppose it did include a $20 million public works project, brought us out to the low 50s. Mm-hmm. Have we rerun that in light of this conversation to where does that land in 10 years?
Well, I'm going to ask Ellie to answer that first as to the current state of the FMP, but then I do have some other color commentary as well.
So with this, our biggest spike, if we assumed within the assumptions we're running, we're assuming level debt. So that would be if we start right off the bat with what the payments would be, we would hit our highest tax capacity in 2030, and that would be about 54%. And then it would start to, depending on what we do, either taper down or stay consistent. At the last budget workshop, we've had a couple of questions of what are we seeing. The Washington County does a really good job of pulling everything together. Forest Lake is still in the middle with that 45%. I will pull it all together and push it out to the council so you can see where we would relate. I don't know off the top of my head, but with what I can recall, that 54% still wouldn't put us at that top level, but I will push all that information out. It is, of course, 2025 data because that's what they have now, but it is really good and useful and it's laid out really nice. So I'll push that out tonight or tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
And then Mayor and council members, if I can just add one other thing. So the city's financial plan is really good in that it takes a conservative look at future revenues. It takes, i.e., assumes on the low side there, it assumes conservatively on expenses, i.e. a little bit higher. And it assumes conservatively on future property tax base growth as well. And that's the way a plan should be, right? You don't want to have rose-colored glasses and say our revenues are going to go through the roof and we're going to keep our expenses super low, below inflation, and our tax base is going to grow 20% per year, because that's just going to give you numbers that are worthless to you as the governing body. So the reason I mention this is because almost invariably, when you have that combination of conservative assumptions, conservative being different things when it comes to revenues versus expenses, the future results are almost always better than what's in that plan. And I don't mean to poo-poo that. I mean, you certainly want to make sure that everything is being managed appropriately and over the next several years, so that you can maybe avoid getting to that 54, 55%. But I would also say that a lot of things on their own even will help work in the city's favor. And that's not true of every city, of course. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So on the recommendations here, there's a number of different bullet points that looks like staff's looking for some direction on. So do we want to walk through those individually? And I'm be honest with you, with just hearing this, I don't know if I'm ready to make much of a recommendation on some of these or have any initial because this is initial, any thoughts that might help staff. But first one, preferred debt service structure considerations.
And we don't have to go through all these questions. I am mainly just laying out, hey, here's some more information. What would the council like to see next? How can we help inform additional information? And so they're very high level bullet point questions, open to any discussion or any further information or direction that we could work together as staff to pull.
Well, I think for me, correct me if I'm wrong, but we compared level debt service versus shaped, I think we call it. But the numbers that we were really focused in on was 50% geo bonding, meaning the other 50% was going to come from the utilities. And as I recall from one of our recent workshops, we started looking at what those projected water and sewer rates would be. And I mean, they're indigestible. I mean, it's insane. Like shaping the debt, like almost feels like it might be affordable. It was a $20 million building. At 40 million, I mean, those water rates. So I think we need to have another conversation about that, because if we just do the 50% GO, as it's been said by this council many times, and we're not the first ones that said it, fees or taxes, right? I mean, it's all coming out of our residents' pocketbook. And so, yeah, the shape debt looks much, much better, knowing that we've got a cliff coming up with our current debt. But I think you really need to take a hard look at understanding what we're asking current and future residents to, be ready for when it comes to water and sewer rates.
And as long as you mention that, just add on the water and sewer things, and I know I've had conversations with staff and maybe some council members on this and that, with percentage wise, and I'm sure that's why the percentages that Bruce presented were 12 and I think 37, that some people have no water, no city water or sewer. Some people just have city sewer, and some people have both. And so it's unfair a little bit to put a ton of weight to that, because then you are going to have the users, the water, full water, sewer and water people paying a bigger portion of this project. And I have a little bit of a problem with that, but I understand the justification, and that those two departments, or those two, that department, the sewer and water, is going to work out of this new building. So I understand why we could justify it that way, but it seems a little bit not equal as far as individual residents paying for those. Just something to think about as we move forward. I think the other, this desired project cost assumptions, the next steps, I think, really is that we have to dial in on a number that's we're more comfortable with. I don't think we are comfortable at the 40. I mean, I'm not, and we've talked about, do we build for present? Do we build for 10 years out or 20 years out? And I just don't know, to your point about, the dollars and how that affects people. I don't know if we have an option to build a 20-year out at this point. I think the council has to decide maybe if it's between a 10 and a 20-year build out, or current, or a 10-year build out, but a 20, I just don't know how, as much as I understand long-term, it costs more. I'd like to let future councils make that decision, I guess, on how, what they want to do with that building at some point. So I don't know. I'd like to see it more at either future or current use to 10-year use. That's just my feedback.
I think though, with what we've been looking at in the schematics, that $40 million price tag is the 10-year build out. Is that correct? Or was that the 20-year? That was a 20-year.
It was a 20-year, Mr. Mayor and council members, and Wold is anticipating or projecting that these costs are at about $175 per square foot. So if we were to reduce the project size from the 20-year plan down to current needs, it would be a savings of about $3.75 million. Correct. And that's just my back of the napkin math right now. But that's generally about what that cost savings would be.
I guess that makes some sense, just based on just the site, getting the site ready, the infrastructure coming into the site and all the rest. That cost is gonna be there regardless of what size the square footage of the building is. Right. Anything else on here, council, that you want to give staff direction on at this point after tonight's presentation? Does that help a little bit, Ellie? We've got a little bit of progress here this evening.
Yeah, this helps a ton. And staff is currently also looking at other municipalities that have had major projects that have financed things throughout either using bonds or other type of funds that they're able to pull on. So we are hoping to have a couple options outside of just utility funds and bonds next time we meet too, that we can have discussions on. But keeping in mind that we are the resources that we do have, but there has been some, even in the last couple days, we found some different things that other cities have done that we'll bring back in front of the council and get some feedback on.
Anything else, council?
I think if Ellie's comfortable with the feedback tonight, I think we're good. Keep moving forward and bringing some different perhaps scenarios to council for consideration to get this project moving forward potentially.
Thanks, Bruce, for that detailed presentation. Appreciate coming in tonight.
Happy to come again. Really value our relationship
Yes.
with cities. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, 8B, Havenwood final PUD plat easement vacation, and Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts, members of the council. Tonight you have for your consideration final planned unit development, final plat, and easement vacation related to Havenwood. Just as a heads up and as a reminder to the council, Havenwood is Chestnut Creek 2. I think you may have gotten some weekly updates that kind of had advised that there was a change in ownership and development, and they wanted to really kind of separate themselves from Chestnut Creek. That being said, they are bound by some of the original planned unit development constraints associated with Chestnut Creek, and we'll kind of go through some of those things. So Twin City Land Development is developing the property. It's west of Harrow Avenue. It is the entire planned unit development is 116 lots. This is down 3 lots from what was originally proposed in the Chestnut Creek Phase 2 and during that preliminary plat process that was approved with 119 lots. It's got it for low to medium density residential and zoned for mixed MXR1. This has a development density of 3 to 6 units per acre, and we are just over that 3 units per acre in the first phase. So as you can see up on the screen there, and we got a little, just feeling a little fuzzy with our doubles there. But in the first phase, everything that's green would be developed at this time, 61 lots and all utility and street construction. Should be worthy to note, this is the Greystone Avenue connection, and this connects into the existing Chestnut Creek. So with phase one, we will be making that through neighborhood connection. That's pretty important. I think that's maybe been missing for the last 10 years or so in Chestnut Creek. That needs to be done before new home construction can occur. We will have connections to the north and connections to the south, but at that time, those are just going to be at the end of that individual plat line. Everything in blue is the second phase of this development. So tonight for your consideration is approval of the planned unit development. That would be what establishes flexibility standards for the entirety of Havenwood. We're going to consider vacating an easement. This is an easement for utilities that are in place under what was originally and what is going to be platted as right-of-way now. So in order for Chestnut Creek to be serviced, the former developer pulled those utilities through this undeveloped site. We have easements over those. Those easements need to go away. And then we would consider approving the plat that goes right back over those easements in right-of-way. The PUD flexibility. So as a reminder, we carry forward all of the flexibilities that were offered as part of Chestnut Creek. This was reviewed through the preliminary plat process. This allows for a mix of 55-foot wide lots where 65 is the minimum standard. Should be noted that in the former PUD or the Chestnut Creek PUD, lots went as low as 52 feet. This will kind of erase out that 52 and say 55 as our minimum. And then there's a couple circumstances where we'd have a 20-foot corner front yard setback. That's pretty common in some of these neighborhoods now. Phase one final plat. This is an area where we have 61 single family lots that we'd extend the streets and utilities like we've talked about. Provides that connectivity for sidewalk, stormwater, landscaping. It also adds additional 1 acre of wetlands. So as a reminder, there were some wetland encroachments in the first phase that this developer is willing to preserve additional wetland and wetland buffer area to compensate for that first phase encroachments. And then also a little over ½ acre neighborhood park, centrally located near the intersection of major roadways. I'm going to go back just a few pages or a few slides really quick. Oops. That park is located right here. So right at the intersection of where our major roadways, right where the first phase comes, or the first half of the development comes in, right in that northeast corner. So a reminder to the council actually directed the developer to bring forward a plan for parkland. They're still working on a park build out plan that would be incorporated in the DEA. There is a condition of approval of that. And then we may still have some combination of not only this land dedication and improvements, but also fee in lieu, especially when we start looking at those other final plats that will come forward. But we'll reassess that dedication at that time. Planning Commission did review this. They had a public hearing on May 13th. At the time of the public hearing, there were no comments received. Since Planning Commission voted unanimous approval, their conversation did focus on construction traffic, just debris tracking, some of that typical neighborliness when we're next door to construction, and then that parkland dedication. Written comments after the Planning Commission were included. There's some in your packet. There's 2 up on the dais for you guys to consider. One was from Adam Erickson and another from Carrie Chavez. Again, a lot of it really surrounds around emergency access. Some of the things that we heard was construction traffic, pedestrian connectivity, school bus dust noise, all of those interactions, the park size, So some of the responses that staff has provided in the packet and also to the applicants is that phase one is really a key, or this phase one plat of the Havenwood or the Second Creek Second Edition, however you want to say this, but it is Havenwood. That really provides that key connectivity component that's been missing from Chestnut Creek to the properties to the west. It provides that second out. I think recently you looked at developments that didn't have that second out and how much that second out is a concern. And here is we're getting those connectivity finally in this area. Construction traffic plan was included, has been included, but that also includes a 15-mile-an-hour through the neighborhood, coordination with the school district on bus drop-off and pickup times. They will need to post signage, and then the construction does need to come through this neighborhood. Question has been raised, why aren't we also requiring and allowing the construction to come through Greystone when Greystone gets built? And we're not going to be able to control the builders themselves. This is just when the development occurs and there is less interruption, less neighbors being interrupted. I know it's interruption for Chestnut Creek, but from Harrow to this Havenwood, then from Goodview Avenue all the way over here. So that's where we're really trying to minimize overall community impact. We had those comments about the parks that I did bring up to you. So I think in essence, this is the highlight of something you've seen a few times and this council and city has seen over the last decade. So the council's requested actions tonight, and these are a little bit out of order than the agenda. So the only thing you have to have a hearing on tonight is the easement vacation. But I guarantee anybody who wants to comment, it's going to comment on all the things. And I think it's good to hear that public comment one last time. But when you go then to take specific action, and I can keep this up for you, having our recommendations and approvals in a certain order, we first want to vacate our easements, then we want to amend that PUD, then we want to approve the PUD and the plat. And because just that order of operations is kind of that order of how it's kind of supposed to flow. Some key approval considerations, there's conditions in this. Nothing's going to be released until we have a development agreement, easement, securities, fees, park obligations. So we still have a ways to go. That also does note in the staff report in that the engineering comments, we still have some things to work through. The plat lots aren't going to change, but there might be some easements that are going to change in some of these properties. Stormwater pond maintenance are things that we have to address. So this is pretty common though, where we're fine tuning those last bit of details until we come back with a development agreement for you. The staff is recommending all the things, the vacation of the easement, the final PUD, the final plat on the basis it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, the city code, preliminary plat, preliminary PUD, recommendations from commissions. We really think that this is, we got this one finally nailed in and it's ready for your blessing. So tonight for your consideration, it's first to open up a public hearing and then close the hearing and discuss. And I can help you work through any inquiries you have or motions if you need. I do know representative of the developers here if you want to chat with him, but otherwise I think opening that hearing is probably your next step. Any questions for me?
Okay, at 7:40, we will open up the public hearing on the Havenwood public hearing for easement vacation. You're more than welcome to come to speak to the vacation. I will open it up to any other concerns regarding this or thoughts or questions regarding, not so much questions, but regarding this development. Please leave your comments limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Wait, I'll ask one more. Yeah, Ms. Brandt, did you want to speak to this? Okay. Hey, anyone like to speak to council on the public hearing of this matter? See, okay.
Oh, Michael Anderson, 7570 231st Street North. You guys approved,
Forest View Estates?
yeah, that thing. And you guys did not say signage will go up before construction starts in my area.
Can I just make one comment? This is a final approval. The approval that they granted for Forest View Estates is preliminary. So we do still have some options at the final
Okay.
approval to talk through some of those
I just,
traffic safety
I
concerns.
just like to have the things,
It's a good point. Yep.
they've been driving through that road like crazy, like for years, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this matter? We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Thoughts, questions? I have a question or two. Maybe just a little history. So is Horton still involved in this and going to be
Yes.
the builder
Yeah,
for
so
this, right?
PR Horton was originally going to develop and build it. They've entered into a partner, I haven't looked at legal agreements and the representative Twin City Land Development is here if we have more specifics. But it is my understanding that Twin City Land Development will be developing this for DR Horton to build the homes.
So similar and similar product type homes, all the rest, nothing's really changed from the original.
I can't guarantee that the homes are the same as the ones in the first phase that I
Not
haven't.
the first, but the second, like what was approved in the preliminary,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Just the,
Yes, your home style is going to be very similar to what we saw through that preliminary plating process.
would the applicant like to speak? You're more than willing. I don't know if the council has any questions, but you're more than willing to address if you're welcome to. I mean,
Ben, excuse me, Ben Schmidt, Twin Cities Land Development, 3 Eastfield Lane, North Oaks. I really, as you can see, I showed up to not present, so no, I had nothing to add, just happy to stand for any questions. The only thing I will add is, so we are a developer. We, as you know, we're developing another project in your fine city. DR Horton would be our builder. And yes, everything that they had been presented throughout this process in terms of what the homes would look like would be the same as we would have expected.
questions?
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Right. Looks like there's a couple motions to make here if anyone's willing at this point.
I'll make the first motion to adopt resolution number 05262605, vacating the existing drainage and utility easements over Outlot A and Outlot B, Chestnut Creek, subject to replacement easements and recording requirements acceptable to the city.
Right. The motions are second.
I'll second.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next one, if anyone's.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 771, amending the Chestnut Creek PUD for Havenwood.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 05262604, authorizing summary publication.
I'll second.
Great. Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 05262603, approving the final PUD amendment in phase 1 final plat.
Second.
We have motion is second. Any further discussion?
I have just a question, Abby. Do we need to add the 16 conditions with that motion?
They're in the resolution, so I don't think
Okay.
that you need to know.
Okay, just checking.
Motion is second, right? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we move into discussion items and city ordinance, deer hunting, shotgun rifle, and Chief Hanegraaff.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. What I'd like to present to you tonight is this has been kind of ongoing for about a year and a half in the state on the state disavowing or basically eliminating the shotgun zone and the rifle zone that has been historically kind of stayed in the metro area and outstate areas. The House passed the abolishment of the shotgun zone. So what that means is Washington County, Anoka County, the whole entire state, it's basically whatever type of firearm you would like to use to harvest white-tailed deer, you're now allowed to do that anywhere. And it was kind of left up to the counties at first to see what they were gonna do with it, whether they were gonna pass a citywide ordinance or they were gonna leave it up to the municipalities. Well, it's been kind of left up to the municipalities that I can find. And the concern that I have is we're talking about a very short 7 day season. But we still have, out of all the municipalities in Washington County, we have a very large amount of rural residential and wildlife management areas that this is going to be applicable to. The conversations I've had with the DNR all the way up the chain is they don't really feel like this is going to be much more of an issue. I have to disagree with that because allowing a slug out of a shotgun to be shot at a moving deer in our city, which maybe has a maximum range of 200 yards, is a lot different than a fully high-powered rifle that the only thing that's stopping that round within 300, 400, 500, 600 yards is an object. Well, I don't feel that that object, I can't say that that's not going to impact the safety of the city. Our neighboring city to the west, Columbus, is also actively trying to enact an ordinance because of this, because we also have Lamprey Pass that borders right on Clear Lake. We have state land in between the freeways. And I'm just trying to understand if the council has the, if you would like me to look more into this to try and specifically just only allow shotguns for deer hunting in the city of Forest Lake. This doesn't impact people that have land that still want to target practice. This is merely just for the 7 day, basically deer hunting season that only shotguns are allowed in Forest Lake. And I could take any questions that anybody may have on it.
So up to this point, we've been a shotgun only municipality because of the state law.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Something like this, would it warrant, or should there be a public hearing to have conversation about this or input from city residents?
It definitely can. I know there's going to be a lot of people that probably are for and against this. Myself being an avid deer hunter, knowing anybody that's been around guns and knows ballistics knows that rifles in this kind of area, if you're not on a stationary target with a berm behind it, if you're shooting at a running deer, that round has the potential to go a lot farther. There's already enough close calls as it is with slugs at a minimum distance. Now, when you allow high-powered rifles, now we're exponentially increasing that risk that something other than a tree or a deer has to stop that round. So I'm more than willing to public hearing or however you would see fit.
I guess I mean, this is kind of scary, to be honest with you. When you think about, I've hunted in the opportunity there and how long it's crazy that the state had changed this. I think it used to be, wasn't it north of County Road 2 or State Highway 2 or something like that? I mean, they had different, and for that to go away with other concerns of gun, I'm just really surprised that that was the way the legislature went. So I would be in favor of for sure bringing more forward, and I'm open to whether or not the rest of council thinks there should be a public hearing on something like this.
Mr. Mayor, we're not statutorily mandated to hold a public hearing on this, but it's always at the discretion of the council. So if the council would like to move forward with an ordinance amendment or consideration of an ordinance amendment for this matter, we certainly can incorporate a public hearing into that item when we bring it forward for council consideration.
Definitely. But like the chief was saying, rifles are way more velocity and distance than a slug. Slugs are bad enough, but rifles are tremendous, especially if it's ricocheting off something. You just don't know where it's going to go.
And mayor and city council, currently the city of Afton is trying to develop something as well right now. see what kind of verbiage or language that they can do to not impede on somebody's ability if you have the access and you have the distance and safe distance to use a firearm. It's more or less just strictly for the deer season purposes.
I would be, again, I think this is something I would support. The question would be the council if you think you want to have a public hearing on something like this.
Personally, I don't know that it's necessary. I'm certainly open to it. And I say that mainly because we're not taking anything away in the sense that we're just putting in a policy that the state, frankly, to your point, I'm super shocked that this is what they got done, of all the things that need to be done. And so to just put in place a policy that's going to allow people to continue doing what they've been doing for decades in Forest Lake, I don't see that as controversial in the slightest. I mean, anybody that's in a near, I mean, I've hunted with both rifles and shotguns, and I can attest that there is a significant difference, as many people in the room probably can. And so I wouldn't have any problem having Chief bring back a policy that would allow people to continue doing what they've been doing and yet keep their neighbors as safe as can be in that capacity.
And as an avid hunter myself, I don't see any problem with that. I think, just keeping that policy in place for safety is key. And if you want to use your rifle, you go outside the metro area where it's allowed and you hunt with your rifle. But like you say, it's a short period of time. Wouldn't affect me at all.
I'm definitely comfortable looking into this more. And would it be an ordinance or a policy?
It would be amendment to our ordinance 130 right now, which is basically the discharge of a firearm within city limits. So we do have those rural residential conservancy districts. It basically applies to that, and it would just be an addition to basically indicate that during deer season, for the most part, only shotguns are allowed to take lawful game during that period. No rifles will be used. And then it would specify a little bit more of the legal definitions of what an actual shotgun is compared to a rifle.
I think also, I mean, with feedback, we always want feedback. So if there's some feedback either way, there's the opportunity to do it at open forum, email us, reach out to us directly so that to still get that feedback to the council.
And Mr. Mayor, just so the council's aware, we are mandated to publish on our city website 10 days prior to a consideration of an ordinance by this council, a full copy of that ordinance. So we do that on our public notices page on our website. Anytime we're going to be bringing forward an ordinance for the council to consider, it is out there for the public to view well in advance of even before the packet's published.
Enough direction, Chief?
As long as the council agrees, I will bring forth some amendments to this ordinance. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9B, communications plan for proposed public works facility. Jolie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this council knows, the council did provide direction and authorization for the city to engage the services of Goff Public to start a more robust communication campaign regarding the proposed public works facility. We've started work with those folks, and they have provided us a communications plan, which was attached in your packet for reference. So tonight, just asking for some council feedback on that, if council is comfortable with the communications plan as outlined. I'm specifically looking for a little bit of council direction regarding the desired level of engagement that's outlined in that plan, really specific to the use of surveys and open houses. A little bit of discussion on council participation in outreach activities, i.e. hanging out at the city table at Arts in the Park to engage with folks as we're eating all the bad food, delicious bad food, enjoying music, but just having conversations with our community members during those kind of events, and at the new farmers market that's launching this summer and into fall. And then just any council discussion and direction on any additional communication priorities. Separately, but related to this, I know there had been a lot of discussion from this council under the prior administrator regarding a video and getting some video information out to our community about the needs of our public works facility. and our future needs. I did some digging in some past records, and it looked like the city had received a quote for some video work from our LATV coordinator through his private production company. That quote was coming in around $12,000. I did connect with Goff Public, and they have provided us a quote for a couple different videos, a short form 30-second video, kind of in line with the TikTok video, which is kind of where everyone's attention span is right now. That would be about $1,700, or a long form 2-minute video that would come in around $3,000. They did note that they believe that if we wanted to move forward with both of those options, we could find some cost savings efficiencies by doing both of those. So just looking for some council direction and feedback on the communications plan and moving forward with that.
Yeah, I'd say that video is essential to get the word out, especially if we're trying to communicate, not only what is, but then also what it could be, just to help people understand what our current public works facility is like. And video is the way to do it. A postcard's not going to get the job done. So I'd do both, because there's some that'll watch the 30-second, and then there'll be some that, I imagine that 2-minute will be on the website, be on YouTube and all the places, and there'll certainly be people to watch that. But I think both are essential.
Great, thank you.
I'd agree with that.
I agree.
Yep, I'd agree with that as well. I think the postcard will reach everybody, but you might not have the technical savvy folks but the postcard would hit home, but the video would really push it.
And I would say we could also include a QR code on that postcard that folks could scan to get to the video as well. So kind of hit them both.
So Councilmember Larson and I are on the Public Works Steering Committee, and that's where this idea of the video came out of. And not knowing how it was posed to our LATV rep person, I'm kind of questioning whether or not this falls in something that they would typically do as part of what's being paid with cable commission, or if this falls in where it would be a charge type thing. I think all of us who ran for council had the opportunity to, do our stump speech. That was no charge. Lakes Area TV has done stuff for the chamber. They were down yesterday doing the filming of the Vets Memorial. So I think maybe a little further discussion with Paul and or the Cable Commission to see, is this something that would fall into that and should as public service back to the community? I think this is really, the video part is really important to tell that story. So on that part, I think that would be my recommendation, is try to get a little more clarity on that. Don't have a problem using them, but I think if we've got that capability in our in-house, that would be save us some money, even though if it's minimal. The other thing, so I'm on the subcommittee for the communication on this.
Yep.
So some of the, when we met with Goff people, one of the questions was a survey. And so I don't know what council's thoughts are on a survey. We've done surveys for the budget, and out of a community of 20,000 people, we got 100, responses. And so they, in our conversation, said that they would do a much greater ability to do outreach to get more responses. They do typically get better responses. I just hate that this would be weighted. This decision could be weighted on a really very small percentage of the population if that survey isn't put out the right way and in all the different areas that we can get it out. So I don't know if council, what your thoughts are on this survey or not.
I don't think it would hurt. It wouldn't hurt to put it out there. Like you say, unfortunately, we get a minimal response, unfortunately, from people, but this is a big item, and we like their input. They participate.
And I would say the same thing with the minimal response that we normally get on surveys. I think we have to do something different. And to me, having some sort of a public viewing or open house of some sort where they can come over to our public works buildings and see how bad those buildings are. They are so bad they should be condemned. And the taxpayers, they'll make a decision based on, well, the taxes are going to go up a little bit. And I get it. Taxes are significant and nobody wants to pay more taxes, but until the public can see those buildings and see how bad they really are and see the need that we have as a city for them, a survey is not going to do any good, in my opinion.
I would agree. I think if we do proceed with the survey, I think it should be tied with potentially one of the formal or informal open house, where if you come to the formal open house or the informal open house, maybe you take a survey afterwards, or something along those lines. I think if you just push out a survey, I think people might not be able to see the whole picture, or I would be concerned that they aren't seeing the whole picture. Yeah.
Or not, maybe an option at the end of those videos to
Mhm.
go on to a, you know, a link to fill out that survey. or something.
Absolutely. That's a great
Maybe
idea.
that's a-
And I agree, if it's on the back end of an educational event, that makes it more arguably valuable. Why I say arguably is because those surveys can be written in such a way that unfortunately that the user can be guided to one conclusion. And so I'm not the biggest fan of surveys, quite honestly. I mean, I think we need to really think as a council and staff about what is it that we're looking for from that survey that isn't just a natural conclusion that, yeah, the buildings are bad and we should replace them at $40 million. Like,
Could it be, do we build for current use? Do we build for 20? What would you like, questions like that? Or
yeah, I mean, you need to give it some thought, but I don't have the answers tonight.
Yeah.
It's just kind of coming to me. We're talking
would
about
they
this,
be able to
but
give us maybe a sample of what a survey could look like potentially without,
Yeah, I
you
can,
know, a big part of that money that we've already.
I can
budgeted?
absolutely ask for some examples of other surveys that they've done in communities with similar projects. And I think Dave and I can probably work together on some potential survey options as well and bring that to the subcommittee for a discussion if council would be comfortable with that.
The other thing here is I'm more than willing to be at Arts in the Park or the farmer's market that's going to be coming. I just think that we have a lot of unknown questions, you know, answers to questions on this thing. And I think I'd really like to have that built out a little bit so that we are on a united front speaking some facts and really where we think the council is at this point. So maybe that doesn't happen until, say, July or later in the summer. The farmer's market does go through October. So if we're not there day one at the Arts in the Park, we at some point when we're comfortable doing so, because I think that's important. It's a great opportunity to be in front of the public on a number of different issues.
Agreed.
Is that enough
Yep, that's
direction?
great feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move into staff updates. And Ellie,
No updates.
Ryan.
Mayor, City Council got a few updates for you tonight. If you drove down Goodview today, you may have seen some grading activity starting on Amberley Woods. Our current water efficiency grant program will end at the end of June. However, we were successful in obtaining $28,000 in additional grant funds from the Met Council on the 2026 through 2028 water efficiency grant program. So that will carry on that program. Today I attended a pre-construction meeting with Washington County Environmental Center on a landscaping addendum that was executed with the development agreement to install additional landscaping along the extension of Headwaters Parkway and then the buffer areas on the south side of the parkway, just north of those existing homes. So that'll start next week. And they said plan for 3 weeks of work out there, just depending on weather. So more activity happening, but that's all I got.
Abby.
Nothing crazy development, as Ryan said, is going to start kicking off. We met last week, or our team met last week with the permitting and construction team from DR Horton, knowing that they're going to kind of start moving into the city, hoping to put names and faces and just understand their processes, our processes. It's usually a few little kinks right in the beginning, but usually we can get those worked through pretty quickly. We did also meet with another landowner about a new single-family development north of Menards that's come to the city in the past, but that is a completely different home product, more of a villa style home that isn't, I would say, as prevalent in the city. And then I think about the only other thing that I wanted to just note is Mayor Roberts and I met last week with Amanda Johnson. We met with the Land Use Advisory Committee for the Met Council as part of our stipulation agreement. We presented to them for almost an hour, I think. I feel like there was some mixed results, some good questions on what some of the concerns of the city of Forest Lake were. I will say Chair Morales, who actually represents Anoka, was really encouraging of the city coming to the Met Council and to the Land Use Advisory Committee, wanting to hear the stories from cities that are experiencing challenges. And he also indicated that he has heard very similar concerns in his community. So I'm hopeful that those conversations will continue with the Land Use Advisory Committee and the Met Council, that maybe they'll consider additional exemptions. But that does mean we kind of have to close that chapter of our system statement, and we'll start moving forward with consultant selection process. So in the next few weeks, we'll probably start seeing some materials coming before you of us getting ready to start looking to see if we can get some quotes for service to assist us with that project. So that's all I have.
Dave.
Attended a pre-construction meeting today for the airport runway extension project. That project's gonna begin next week, Tuesday. The airport will be closed from the 2nd through the 5th for them to move the lights around, to reopen the runway up to 2,100 feet. So they're shortening up the runway during construction to keep it open while they're doing construction. So end result will be a 3,000-foot runway. They anticipate being done right before Labor Day or the end of August.
Thanks. Chief Hanegraaff.
No updates.
Jolene.
Dave just stole my update, so no further updates this evening.
Councilmember Miller.
Briefly, school board met again and they came to no decisions regarding the contract with the new superintendent, and they spent another few hours trying to pick another member of the board, and they couldn't do that either. So we're still in limbo.
Councilmember Lento.
No updates.
Councilmember Erickson.
Just a quick question for Dave. There's a couple of water main breaks over the winter, one on 11th, I think one on South Shore. What's the plan for pavement replacement?
We need some kids back. So we're just trying to keep up with full-timers doing all of our mowing. So kids start coming back, some this week, and then most of them come on June 8th. Start doing our bigger patch and have the staff do those.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no further updates.
Councilmember Larson.
I'd just like to say thank you to the community for the well representation at the memorial service down at Lakeside Park. It was very well attended, and everybody got to get a nice up close look at the new memorial that we have going there. So thank you again for your participation.
Yeah, I would add to that. Thank you to Public Works, Kyle, Dave, your crew. It came together at the last minute there. We knew we were, but it really looks great. Early on, I was questioning maybe the size and scope it would fit in that space, and it fits really, really well. So appreciate everyone's work on that. And then just, Abby mentioned our presentation to the Met Council, and both Abby and Attorney Amanda Johnson just knocked it out of the park representing Forest Lake. So I appreciate their efforts on that. So, right, looks like so we have a closed session this evening. Anyone want to put us into closed session?
I'll make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C3 to develop or consider offers or counter offers for the purchase or sale of property identified as 30.032.21.33.0001, 30.32.21.34.0001, 30.032.21.42.0001, 30.032.21.43.0001, 30.032.21.41.0001, and last but not least, 30.032.21.44.0001, Washington County, Minnesota.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed, and we're in closed session.